newspaper and stuff, people looked at the list and they thought it was things that we as a board already cut. Okay? They were a bit misleading on that. I think our administrators have done an excellent job coming forward and saying, no, let's leave the aides in there, we'll take a salary freeze. We're looking at our different areas where we can become more efficient and get the job done for a lower price, which is what we hear quite often. Definitely a different view here tonight than it was at the annual meeting. But I think a lot of that had to do with misinformational. People, you know, you heard about the high schools becoming one, you heard about the swimming pool closing, things like that. Those are possible cuts that got thrown out there. They were never discussed by the board, they were never considered by the board. So please, just make sure you're making informed decisions and research beyond what just a newspaper has. Thank you.
You know, I got to be careful because I want to make it to my car safely tonight. So, you know, I just had the same question that I had earlier to the financial advisor Bob who spoke with us, and one of the pie charts that was put up at the annual meeting showed how aid was broken out, and it showed how much came from federal, how much came from state, how much came from local. But the important thing as a taxpayer, we have to remember, we're the ones paying into the local, we're the ones paying into the state, we're the ones paying into federal. So wherever that money comes from, ultimately it comes from us. My concern, once again, is as I approach, you know, as I asked Bob earlier, is when does the cycle end? And it's not a question of whether I support public schools. It's not a question of whether I like public education. And as I've heard over the past 4 days, I understand I do not like children. Well, my wife is kind of stuck with that one, I guess. You know, so that's not the case. But I do want us to make certain that as a board and as an administration, we are good stewards of the money that you give us. And I want to make certain that when we receive the money, that we spend it appropriately and that we don't waste it. If there are areas that we can cut, then we should. If there's areas, as we had looked in the maintenance budget that came out of the maintenance audit that stated there are areas that you're over in, then we should do that. Because that's our job as good stewards of the money you give us. Whether or not we raise the tax to the full levy or not, my question will always be, will we be good stewards of what you give us? Because that's the important thing.
Everybody gets their turn. Everybody needs to hear from us.
Just gonna sit there silently until I talk? Is that what you're gonna do?
Well, I think you're working down the row, actually.
All right, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. I want to echo two things that were said. One is by Bruce, and I want to correct Joe. I think we were actually there closer to 4 hours and 3.5 on the 5th. We had an extremely deep discussion around everything that went on as far as the budget goes. And at the end of the meeting, I asked Dan Mucklebauer, how many words are they going to give you in the newspaper? And he didn't really know. I said, less than 1,000? And he said, oh, absolutely, less than 1,000. So what you read in the paper